This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
أفرجت حركة طالبان الأفغانية اليوم عن 8 رهائن كوريين.
The Taliban movement freed 8 out of the 19 South Korean hostages. This release comes as part of an agreement between the movement and the South Korean government. Seoul welcomed the near ending of the hostage crisis which began in July.
في شهر تموز يوليو الماضي.
أخيراً سيعودون سالمين.
Finally, they will return safely to us. The Taliban pledged to accept and carry out public and non-public demands to release the 19 South Korean hostages in waves. They have actually begun to free the hostages and hand them over to the International Red Cross in Ghazni. Meanwhile, South Koreans awoke to this good news. The countdown has begun in Seoul to end a crisis that has been difficult for everyone.
그건 말씀드리기 어렵습니다.
When all the hostages are freed and together, we will plan to return all of them at the same time and as quickly as possible.
The families of the hostages want their ordeal to end as quickly as possible. They may have lived the most difficult 40 days of their lives. The lives of their most beloved ones were at the hands of the Taliban. It was a difficult wait for them. Inside this church, everyone has pledged to never participate in any future missions in Afghanistan and to respect the agreement that the Korean delegation made with the Taliban. The feelings of happiness about the near ending of this nightmare were mixed with feelings of sadness about the people who were killed by the Taliban. 23 South Koreans had been on their way to Kandahar on July 19th. After this date, they were kidnapped, threatened, 2 of them were killed, and 2 women were released. Then came an agreement, and a deal was made to free the remaining hostages.
We would have preferred having all of the hostages returned alive. However, the bad news is that 2 people were killed.
This crisis must not be repeated. I think this will give Christians a strong reason to rethink their evangelical mission.
This experience is a lesson for anyone who is considering going to Afghanistan, regardless of their mission and perhaps regardless even of their religion. The Taliban became professional kidnappers and used kidnapping as a weapon to pressure the Kabul government and its allies. It does not appear that it will end this line of profession anytime soon. According to its desires, the Taliban made demands, placed conditions, negotiated, and secured some of what it demanded. The rules of conflict in Afghanistan and elsewhere adhere to no prohibitions or borders. A village on the Iraqi-Iranian borders in Kurdistan, Iraq, was shelled by the Iranian army, resulting in major human and material losses. The strikes also forced hundreds of Kurdish families who are experiencing very difficult humanitarian conditions to flee. Arabiya cameras visited the area. From Sulaimaniya, Ahmed Saleh.
في قصف عنيف لم تشهده القرى الحدودية العراقية مع إيران في السليمانية منذ الحرب العراقية.
The Iraqi-Iranian border village of Sulaimaniya has not witnessed such violent strikes since the Iran-Iraq war. The Iranian army's heavy artillery continued to strike the village in northeast Sulaimaniya near the borderline between the 2 countries. The Iranian army believes that the residents of the area are harboring members of the Bajak, an Iranian Kurdish movement under the Kurdistan Workers' Party. After the Bajak downed an Iranian military helicopter, it carried out military missions in the region. The Iranian strike resulted in human casualties among residents of the village. Meanwhile, hundreds of Kurdish families fled from the Iranian fire amidst deteriorating humanitarian conditions. There are no signs that the armed Iranian military operations in the region will stop, despite the fact that the Iranians have no right to enter Iraqi territory, according to the residents. This incident happened amidst a crisis that is beginning to appear on the political horizon between the two countries. However, it seems that prospects for peace between Iraq and Iran are moving on the right path.
في إطار أزمة تلوح في الأفق السياسي بين البلدين سيما وإن الحال أمسى متخطيا لمواثيق السلام بين العراق وإيران.
I informed the Iranian side about our concerns and that this action does not comply with the principles of good neighbors. If there are security problems in the borders, it must be resolved through cooperation and through official channels between the two countries. Any unilateral measure by one side must be avoided, especially one that targets secure civilian areas.
The Iranian strike of the Kurdish Iraqi village that borders the two countries was also the point of debate during an emergency session of the Kurdish parliament. During the session, Kurdish parliament members called on the Iraqi government and the coalition forces to take a serious position in order to stop the Iranian aggression. From Sulaymaniyah, Ahmed Al-Saleh, Al-Arabiya.
Iraq has turned into a battleground between the U.S. and Iran at all levels. Meanwhile, the U.S. forces in Iraq detained for a short time several Iranian energy officials who arrived in Baghdad to sign a contract for electricity. This news comes after the U.S. President George W. Bush warned that he will take the necessary security measures to protect his troops in the land of the two rivers. Meanwhile, Iran expressed concern over the incident, which may bring the U.S.-Iranian relationship several steps back. Ismat Tarabi reports.
Amidst the darkness of the night and from the heart of the Iraqi capital, they were detained and taken away to an undesignated area. After staying for a few hours in detention, they were released into the custody of the Iraqi forces. They are 7 Iranian energy officials who came to Iraq in order to sign an electricity deal with their Iraqi counterparts. They were detained by the U.S. forces in a military operation which Washington believes was necessary to protect its troops in the land of the two rivers.
They cannot escape responsibility.
They can't escape responsibility for their support of heinous attacks against coalition forces and murder against innocent Iraqis. The Iranian regime must halt its actions, and until it does so, I will take the necessary measures to protect our troops. I've authorized our military commanders in Iraq to confront Tehran's murderous activities.
Bush has recently intensified his anti-Iranian campaign, perhaps to rally national support for his war in Iraq, especially since his campaign is losing momentum in the international community. Meanwhile, Iran is betting that the U.S. forces will soon withdraw from the land of the two rivers and the entire region.
We will soon see a large political vacuum in the region, and we are preparing to fill it with the help of neighboring countries and our regional friends, including Saudi Arabia and the southern state of Iraq.
While Najad undermined U.S. superiority in Iraq, Hashemi Rafsanjani, the chairman of the Expediency Council of Iran, criticized Washington for its rhetoric regarding an imminent victory in Iraq and urged it to swallow its pride and withdraw from the land of the two rivers.
Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad did not only offer to help the U.S. withdraw from Iraq, but also urged it to stop its arrogance, which has exhausted its troops in Iraq and the entire region as well. Najad also talked about his country's nuclear program and said that the file has been permanently closed and not for discussion. Ahmad Barani reports from Tehran.
On many occasions, Ahmadinejad has given emotional speeches but has rarely given fiery ones. In a press conference, when foreign and local media outlets gathered to hear what Iran's president had to say, Ahmadinejad talked about the many crises and issues facing his country.
The enemies do not know that they are dealing with a nation that believes in aspiration and reaching its goals. They will face a humiliation if they continue to express hostility towards our nation.
Ahmadinejad said that his country's nuclear file has been permanently closed, and whatever was planned for will be translated on the ground, and stressed that there is no turning back. He described the recent talks between the country and the US as useless. He also criticized the US and accused it of adopting a double-standard policy aimed at humiliating the Iranian people. Ahmadinejad warned the US to stop its arrogance, which has not only exhausted its troops in Iraq, but the entire region as well.
Despite the fact that our nuclear program is civilian, they have always threatened us of a military action. They imposed sanctions on Iran, and we asked them not to do so, but they did not care. Therefore, we entered an industrial level to enrich uranium.
Ahmadinejad did not bring anything new to his speech. Iran, which has escalated its political campaign against the US, reiterated its position and vowed not to back down, especially in light of the given circumstances. Ahmed Bahrani, Dubai TV, Tehran.
أهلا بكم من جديد. في الملف العراقي قتل 52 شخصا على الأقل وأصيب أكثر من 200 آخرين.
52 Iraqis were killed and 200 others were injured in fierce clashes between the Iraqi police and the Mahdi army in Karbala, 120 kilometers outside of Baghdad. Meanwhile, Iraqi Deputy Prime Minister Barham Saleh said that any early withdrawal by the American forces from Iraq would cause a civil war.
القوات الأمريكية من العراق سيؤدي إلى اندلاع حرب أهلية شاملة في البلاد.
عقب اشتباكات عنيفة بين الشرطة العراقية ومسلحين في مدينة كربلاء بادرت السلطات إلى إجلاء.
Following the fierce clashes between the Iraqi police and armed groups in Karbala, the Iraqi authorities started evacuating hundreds of thousands of Shiite pilgrims who poured into the city to commemorate the birthday of Imam Mahdi. The police provided buses to transport the pilgrims outside the city, and an additional number of police officers and soldiers were sent there. The Iraqi authorities also imposed a curfew on Karbala and demanded that the pilgrims leave the holy shrines of Hussein and Abbas. Following the clashes that erupted between Iraqi security forces and Al-Mahdi army of Muqtada al-Sadr, when several people were killed and injured. One of al-Sadr's aides in Karbala called on Al-Mahdi army to withdraw and stop fighting. He also asked everyone to do whatever they could to calm the situation down. Thousands of pilgrims left Karbala last night to avoid further clashes. Armed individuals attacked a bus that was taking passengers out of the city, killing 2 of them near Al-Iskandariya, 60 kilometers south of Baghdad. These acts of violence give one an idea of what might happen in all of Iraq should the occupation forces withdraw immediately. Is this what the Deputy Prime Minister Barha Salah warned against?
وهو الأمر الذي حذر منه برهم صالح نائب رئيس الوزراء العراقي.
The premature withdrawal of troops.
The premature withdrawal of the troops will be a disaster, not only for Iraq, but for the international community as well. The American withdrawal may lead to a widespread civil war, which I believe may trigger a regional war. The future of Iraq is crucial to regional balance and stability.
He also criticized the call to replace Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki without first proposing an alternative.
Those who are demanding
that al-Maliki resign must first provide an alternative, because changing the government just for the sake of change and without proposing a trustworthy candidate are not helping Iraq.
من جانبه رفض رئيس الوزراء البريطاني غوردون براون.
The British Prime Minister Gordon Brown rejected a request by the opposition to withdraw the British forces from Iraq. He said that they have the important task of fighting the militias and providing security.
10 أشخاص مصرعهم وجرح آخرون حينما فجر انتحاريون نفسه
10 people were killed and others were injured when a suicide bomber blew up his explosive belt in one of Al-Fallujah mosques during evening prayers. Among the dead were the Imam of the mosque and 2 of his sons. Joint American and Iraqi forces killed 33 armed individuals near a city located 80 kilometers away from Baghdad and confiscated large quantities of weapons.
And from Paris, diplomatic sources said that France's concept of consensus over a presidential candidate in Lebanon does not mean electing a president that does not belong to neither March 8 nor 14. The sources explained that consensus is needed over the political program of the candidate. It added that this program would lead to electing a president seen by all parties capable of guaranteeing the implementation of the program. On the Nahr al-Bared battlefront, intense clashes have been ongoing since 5 in the morning. The Lebanese army's helicopters raided the camp, especially the shelters where the remaining members of Fatah al-Islam are holed up. Yesterday afternoon, the Lebanese army advanced into the last zone of the militants, and the Arafat shelter was now the last target of the army. On another note, the member of the Palestinian Ulamas, Sheikh Mohammed Hajj, said that negotiations over the evacuation of the wounded militants from the camp was now completed. He stressed that the final stages were being conducted. Following the cabinet's latest position regarding the communications network developed by Hezbollah in several Lebanese regions, the Lebanese daily An-Nahar said today that security officials were appointed to contact the group and deal with the issue starting from Beirut and moving to other regions. The security officials will submit a report to the ministerial committee appointed to follow up on the issue. Telecommunications Minister Marwan Hmeidi had said that this network, covering 3/4 of the Lebanese territory, is dangerous, especially that its establishment comes in line with public statements of some opposition figures about division in the country.
The government of Bethlehem is facing an unprecedented settlement campaign targeting its land, where tens of thousands of donums are subject to confiscation in order to build new Israeli settlements.
Israel has launched an unprecedented settlement campaign in the government of Bethlehem, targeting tens of thousands of donums of Palestinian land and threatening the homes of hundreds of families. Meanwhile, the occupation authority continues to move forward with its campaign of confiscation and annexation, which is aimed at building and expanding Jewish settlements and the apartheid wall.
The wall has isolated my businesses. I lost many customers after the wall was built. We have written many letters to various officials, but none of them came through.
Since the apartheid wall was built, dozens of tourist attractions and vital installations were forced to shut down in the area of Bilal bin Rabah Mosque north of Bethlehem. Khalil Musallam, a Palestinian resident, said that the wall has isolated and surrounded his shops from 4 directions. He added that the only way to go to his shops is by climbing the wall, which is very risky. Musallam's case is shared by thousands of Palestinians who continue to suffer as a result of this wall.
We are living under hard and oppressive conditions. No one cares or thinks about us. I want to protect my shops, nothing else.
The ongoing Israeli settlement campaign and the building of the wall have reflected negatively on the local economy and culture in Bethlehem, where hundreds of Palestinian families may face forceful migration. This is what Khalil al-Azza, the head of the Anti-Settlement Commission in Bethlehem, has to say about the ongoing Israeli campaign.
Bethlehem, which is a city of religion and tourism, has been surrounded by the wall from its 4 directions. The wall has a negative impact on the city's economy, tourism, education, and the environment. The city was isolated and divided in order to build the separation wall, expand the settlements, and build bypass roads. This news resulted in a fatal blow to the city's tourist industry and the local economy. Israel must stop this settlement campaign, which includes the building and expansion of settlements and the separation wall.
وتعد بلدة الولجة إلى الغرب من مدينة بيت جالة أكثر المناطق مهددة بالأنشطة والاعتداءات الاستيطانية.
The town of Walaja, west of Beit Jala, is one of the most threatened areas targeted by the Israeli settlement campaign. The occupation authority is seeking to annex the Ain al-Juwayza neighborhood in Walaja to the municipality of occupied Jerusalem. Moreover, Israel plans to confiscate more land from the towns of Irtas and Salamoni, south and west of Bethlehem. The governorate of Bethlehem has come under direct settlement attack. In a deplorable move, the occupation authority has sent eviction notices to dozens of residents, demanding they leave their homes and land in order to expand nearby settlements and build the separation wall. The governorate of Bethlehem is facing danger and it needs immediate help. Will someone try to save the birthplace of Christ, peace be upon him, and stop this unprecedented Israeli settlement campaign? Saeed Ayad, Palestine TV, Bethlehem.
فهل هناك من يتحرك لإنقاذ موئل السيد المسيح عليه السلام من هذه الهجمة الاستيطانية غير المسبوقة؟ سعيد عياد، تلفزيون فلسطين، بيت لحم.
Deputy Prime Minister Chaim Ramon today blamed Hamas for rejecting a deal that would have freed abducted soldier Gilad Shalit in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian security prisoners. Ramon claims the deal was mediated by Egypt 3.5 months ago. According to the agreement, Shalit would have been returned to Israel via Egypt in return for the release of 450 Palestinian prisoners being held in Israel. Ramon said Hamas scuttled the agreement by upping the demand to 1,400 prisoners, including those directly responsible for terror attacks in Israel. Noam Shalit, the father of the kidnapped soldier, said he was unaware of the deal and accused Prime Minister Olmert of not doing enough to secure his son's release. The Israeli version sharply contradicts that of Hamas. The terror group's political leader gave CNN's Nick Robertson a very different version of events.
Last summer, when the Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit was kidnapped, various Israeli ministers...
Not kidnapped, captured.
Captured.
Because he is a soldier.
And you authorized his capturing?
Okay, this is a question?
Yes.
Okay. هناك جناح عسكري.
There is a military wing, and it knows its duties very well. It carries out its responsibilities within a policy movement, but we do not interfere these details, nor do we talk about the operations and their details. They know their duties and their responsibilities, and of course we support anything the resistance does, as long as they confront the Zionist occupation, which occupies our land and assaults our people.
And Hamas right now has Gilad Shalit?
لأن أولمرت حتى الآن
Because Olmert is still detaining thousands of our people. Until now, there are 11,300 prisoners according to the latest official statistics. And therefore, I said many times to all those who come as mediators that the one who is responsible for continued detention of Gilad Shalit is Olmert and not Hamas.
And since last summer, no one has seen Gilad Shalit. Is he alive?
لم نقم بابتزاز إسرائيل.
We did not blackmail Israel, and we gave free information to Gilad Shalit's father and to his family that Gilad Shalit is still alive. When he asked us to bring him medical glasses for his sight, we did our humanitarian duty. We treat Gilad Shalit in a humanitarian way that is in line by the Palestinian morality. Meanwhile, has America and other countries asked Israel what they are doing to 11,000 prisoners from torturing that violate the international law?
Would you swap Gilad Shalit for some of your prisoners?
As I said, we agreed with the Egyptian mediations, and we responded to the Egyptian proposals. And 3 months ago, we reached a principal deal, and we started the application of the deal, and we had been asked to submit a list of 350 names. We submitted the list to the Egyptians, and they submitted it to Olmert. But Olmert rejected the list, and he stopped the negotiations.
So the issue is the number of prisoners?
The problem is not with the numbers. We almost agreed on the numbers of prisoners, but Olmert wants to release prisoners designated by him, and not what the Palestinian people want.
Is Marwan Barghouti one of the prisoners you want released?
نعم نحن
Yes, we put his name on the top of the list that we submitted to the Israeli side. And of course, Israel refuses to release this type of the Palestinian leaders and other prominent figures as well.
The options for Pakistan's President Pervez Musharraf seem to be narrowing. He appears to be on the verge of a power-sharing pact with the former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto after she said he had agreed to discard his uniform.
But at the same time, the country's Supreme Court has agreed to hear an appeal against his controversial role as Chief of the Army. Sohail Rahman reports now from Islamabad.
I only wish to assure you. It's been months in the making, but now the much-hyped deal between President General Pervez Musharraf and his political rival Benazir Bhutto is almost done. The deal includes a number of issues, but the key sticking point, whether Pervez Musharraf could be both the military head and president, appears to have been resolved. Speaking to a London newspaper, Benazir Bhutto has said the president will resign his uniform in any power-sharing deal. Both camps are claiming that a deal is at hand, but until the formal announcement, expect much speculation. Sources close to the PPP are telling Al Jazeera that Bhutto will now return to Pakistan after the holy month of Ramadan. However, a competitor might well beat her to it. The Pakistan Muslim League N leader and exiled former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is expected to return to Pakistan in early September after a Supreme Court decision said it was unconstitutional for any Pakistani national holding a valid passport to be banned from entering the country. Before Bhutto and Sharif can take up office, the constitution needs to be amended, allowing prime ministers to hold office for more than 2 terms. Both Sharif and Bhutto have been prime minister twice before. The political deals are now on the table. What they include will not be fully known until they're made public. The stakes are high in and outside of Pakistan for control of its future. As deals are struck, or not, and politicians plan their return to an ever-changing political scene in the country, the speculation continues. Is Pakistan nearing the end of its political uncertainty? Or is the political soap opera that we've seen this past few months set to continue for the foreseeable future? Sohail Rahman, Al Jazeera, Islamabad, Pakistan.
Hello, my name is Lana Nasser. I am part of the production team of Link TV's news digest, Mosaic, news from the Middle East. I am an artist who avoided the news for many years because I found myself not knowing what to believe. Most of what I heard sounded more like propaganda campaigns than anything else. Now at Mosaic, I look at over 30 Middle Eastern news broadcasts every day to select, translate, and narrate. Why do I do it? Because I think it's important. As an Arab and an American, I take pride in working for Mosaic because I believe it truly brings us uncensored and diverse views of the Middle East. As you may know by now, this is a very critical time for Mosaic. We need to raise $200,000 in the next few months to keep this program alive and on the air through December. If you watch Mosaic, you know it's important to keep it alive. So do your part and help us continue what was started here and advance it. The number is on your screen, so call or log on to linktv.org and donate whatever you'd like. Every dollar counts. If you can't afford the donation you'd like, then become a sustaining supporter. It's an easy way to support Mosaic all year round. Just go online and put in whatever monthly amount you feel comfortable with. You can tell us to stop at any time. Mosaic simply cannot happen anywhere else. You will not find it at any mainstream outlet. It needs a completely free outlet like Link TV to exist. And as part of the Mosaic team, I can tell you firsthand that we don't censor anything because of threats from advertisers or corporate underwriters. This is your station. We cannot do it without you. If you think that uncensored, underreported stories from the Middle East are critical right now, then call the number on your screen. Make a tax-deductible contribution before the summer is over. Thank you for watching.
Mosaic needs your support. Help us reach our goal to raise $200,000 by the end of the year to keep Mosaic on the air. Pledge your gift today at 1-866-485-8848 or linktv.org. Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.